City
Old
County
history.
I'm pretty sure they're gonna.
All right. Is everyone ready here? Okay. So good evening. I apologize for the brief interlude here. But I'd like to call the meeting of the Santa Cruz City County Libraries Joint Powers Authority Board. We will note that the same members who were present for the earlier meeting are still present this evening. With that, I believe our first item on the agenda this evening is a presentation from our marketing team at the library, Diane Cohen and Miley McGrew-Free. Find Yourself in the Library Awareness Campaign, and we get to get a video presentation. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us. I'm Diane Cowan. I'm the Virtual Services Librarian, and
I'm Miley McGrew-Free, and I just recently joined the programming team.
And we have been lucky enough to be working with Miller Maxfield since about November on this awareness initiative that we're calling Find Yourself in the Library. And do you want to...
With Miller Maxfield was originally suggested by Cynthia Matthews, former board member, and their role was originally envisioned a little differently, and then as the measure pushed out, we started trying to re-envision how we would work with them. And so this is the culmination. Find Yourself in the Library sort of emerged as a real collaboration between our marketing team and Miller Maxfield, using their expertise. So this is a marketing campaign where you will see a lot of messaging out in the community, bus ads, a theater 30-second piece that will air in our local theaters prior to the movie. There will be vehicle ads on all of our courier vans, which will be there in perpetuity. So it's a very general campaign. The heart of it are these photographs that you're seeing cycling through here. Crystal Burns, local photographer, very artistic, all of them taken in our branches at real programs with real people attending the programs. And some of them are just really beautiful. So they are the heart of the campaign or the initiative, which is really separate from the ballot measure. It's not about facilities, it's about what the library is and does. And it's about hopefully reaching out to some of the folks that maybe aren't currently library users through these images and messaging. Find Yourself in the Library, which has a double meaning of maybe physically finding yourself in a library branch, but maybe also finding the things that matter to you, tools for building the future and enhancing the present.
So let's go ahead and we'll start out by showing you the movie theater ad. Where did it go? I thought I had it open, but it seems to have gone away. So I had this all ready. Okay. Oh, well, that's actually not what I was looking for, but this, oh, it is, okay. So this is the 30-second ad. Where's my sound tucked? Sorry, this worked so perfect before we started the meeting. That's up at the max. And I put one on my desktop. Maybe that one will work. Where'd it go? Did you see it? there.
In the library, find your voice, find your groove, find your history, find your future, find your community. Find yourself in any of our 10 branches, the bookmobile, and online. Find yourself in the library.
So that is the movie ad that people will see at the Scotts Valley Cinema, at the Del Mar, and at the Nickelodeon, and at
Del Mar, Nickelodeon, Scotts Valley, and Aptos.
Aptos, that's right.
Do you want to see it again?
Oh, that's right, Aptos has got, no. So I created another video that I put on the desktop that's a slideshow that kind of describes the,
You won't believe how many meetings it took to make a 30-second movie. We learned a lot.
okay, just switch the desktop.
So one of the things I will note that as this new board comes together and starts working more with the libraries, I have been working with the library director, our interim director, and trying to put together a series of hopefully training programs kind of for the board, learn a little bit more about the libraries and library operations that we'll put here at this presentation stage at the beginning of the meeting. So we're hoping this is going to be the first of the series.
Right.
Bunch of good opportunities for us to learn more about the libraries.
And I found the video.
I thought as soon as I started talking.
Yeah. And then as a final follow-up to all of this work, we're also mirroring the Find Yourself initiative on social media with Facebook ads that are running through the end of March.
And there will be posters at the front of each branch, and we're still deciding about banners on the outside of some of the branches that mirror the same images, so that there's a connection between people seeing it out there in the community, and then when they walk in the library, they're, oh yeah, that's the same campaign, that's the same initiative.
And then just, we're also, part of the social media plan for this is to try to get the community involved using the hashtag Find Yourself in the Library. So I hope all of you will use the hashtag Find Yourself in the Library when you find yourself there, and post on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that.
Post a picture of finding yourself. And here's some hard copies of the posters if you guys want to keep them, pass them around. Very beautiful.
Oh, I got to take my favorite, okay?
Sure.
Well, thank you very much. Fun campaign. Looks like
I love that one.
Any questions for us? Or?
This is great, thank you.
Vibrant. It's really beautiful, really captured. And I follow you on Instagram as well. Whoever's doing that does such a remarkable job.
Yes.
You know, there's
That's
just
Jasmine and Helen.
Jasmine and
all
Beulah.
of the branches and the little duck.
And lots of other public libraries follow us. Actually, we're pretty well known for that. I'm very proud.
Yeah, you should be. It's wonderful.
Oh, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Here. So with that, takes us to the next item on our agenda, which is additional material. Is there any additional material that needs to be distributed after the agenda was prepared? Okay. Additions and deletions, any changes to the agenda this evening? All right. Oral communication. This is the opportunity to address our board on any items that are not on tonight's agenda, but are within the board's jurisdiction. Anyone like to make a public comment? Yes.
Thanks. I'm Bruce Holloway. Thanks for coming to my neck of the woods. Unfortunately, there's a water board meeting going on down the street, so I'm going to duck out because Jim Mosher is making a presentation about the Felton Library at the water board. So I'll go hear what that is. Let's see. I want to talk about conflict of interest code. A couple of months ago, we started looking at bylaws, and I think the way the discussion went was, wow, these are pretty long and complicated. There's some stuff here that's wrong. There's some stuff here that regurgitates things that are better stated elsewhere. Maybe we should simplify the bylaws. And it's kind of the same thing with the conflict of interest code. A year ago in January, the old library board approved long-form conflict of interest code. I guess most local agencies incorporate by reference boilerplate language from the FPPC, and so they have a very short conflict of interest code that just lists positions and disclosure categories. But for some reason, the library board thought it would be better to have this long thing. Anyway, I was talking to Miss Moriella during the break, and I told her some code sections. One of them says that a conflict of interest code does not go into effect until it's been reviewed by a code reviewing body. And there's in the law, there's a designated code reviewing body for every kind of agency. So for this agency, I believe the Board of Supervisors is the code reviewing body, and that the conflict of interest code has never been presented to the Board of Supervisors. So my interpretation is it's not really in effect because it never got reviewed. And I lay this at the doorstep of Atchison, Barrisoni, and Condati. For 20 years, they never did this. They really ought to know better. Maybe they just didn't want to acknowledge that the Board of Supervisors actually had some review authority over what the library was doing. The next thing is the filing officer. So usually you turn in a Form 700 to an agency, and then usually they turn them over to a filing officer who's outside the agency. But the purported conflict of interest code that the library has says that the library board clerk is the filing officer. And I think that contradicts state law. But anyway, just assuming for the sake of argument that it was a valid conflict of interest code and that it was lawful to have the clerk of the board be the filing officer, then there's a regulation, FPPC regulation, about duties of filing officers. So if you're a filing officer, one of the duties is report apparent violations of the Political Reform Act to the appropriate agencies. An apparent violation exists when the filing officer knows or has reason to believe that the statement contains material inaccuracies or omissions. So on the library website, there's a Form 700, a leaving office Form 700 from Capitola Council member Mike Termini. You remember Mike's the famous one that was doing business with the library and had to pay a bunch of money back. So his leaving office statement was filed on January 12th, and he filed Schedule A1, which says that he owns less than 10% of Triad Electric. The difference between 10% and below 10% and above 10% is if you are above 10% of interest in this business, then you're supposed to file Schedule A2. And Schedule A2 is a place where you're supposed to disclose.
Bruce, you're getting close to 4 minutes here. Please wrap up.
Well, what I'm going to do is give you a letter from the FPPC dated January 12th, same day as Mike's Form 700. This is a letter to Deputy City Attorney Heather Lenhart, and it says in here that Mike owns 100% of Triad Electric, and he did $17,000 worth of business with a company called NHS. So this is a material omission. This is evidence of a material omission. I'm going to leave it with the clerk of the board, and I've got notations here about what I'm talking about. So I hope that she will report this apparent violation to the proper authorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make comments under public comment? Seeing none, I'd like to turn to the report by the library director. Janet?
Tonight, what I thought I would do was just review what the library is doing in preparation for the library facilities revenue measure. We have designated an area on our library website where all of the pertinent documents are in one place where people can find them easily. We have a tile that's moving on a landing page of the library website that will take you directly to this place, and on that page is the ballot language, the resolutions related to the formation of the community facilities district, the facilities master plan, the fact sheet that was prepared, and the FAQ, and I will just say that that will be constantly updated as more questions are asked and we have more answers, and we feel there's more information that needs to be listed there. So we put that there immediately after the brochure started coming into people's mailboxes, because at the end of the brochure it said to consult the website, so we thought we'd better have something for them to consult and find something there, and so that's what we did. Along with that, I've already begun talking to the staff about what their responsibilities are when the library has a measure on the ballot. So we have prepared a document for the staff so they know that they need to be neutral, that they can't take a position for or against while they are on duty. They do retain their rights as a citizen when they're not on duty at the library, but we need to make clear to them what they can and cannot say and what they can wear and not wear when they are on duty. And I've had one meeting with the staff on March 2nd to go over that again, and we videotape that, so that's available for any staff who is not able to be at that meeting. So that we are, I will say that as soon as those brochures went into the mailbox, we began getting questions. So it happened immediately. I knew which day it must have happened because I started getting the phone calls. Most of the questions right now are questions where people are asking what's the difference between the sales tax, what the sales tax measure raises, and what this facilities measure does. And so that's an easy thing for me to explain. I explain to them, you know, that we're talking about operating budget versus capital and buildings. And people are very positive. They just want to know. They just want to understand. So I haven't had any pushback with that. They ask, you know, how much does it cost? And so I tell them about the residential parcel. If they have other land, other parcels, I refer them to the chart that's in the resolution for the rate apportionment, and I have not had any follow-up, any of that. That seems to be satisfactory information for them. Staff is getting questions at the branches, and I hope, it seems like they feel prepared, and when they don't, they get a hold of me. They've been really good about that, so that I can follow up when I need to follow up. I get some phone calls in the office. I have been asked by the SoCal School Board to address them on March 16th to talk about the measure, and I will do that. So I just wanted you to know what the result has been and what steps we are taking. In terms of the recruitment, you'll see in Lisa Murphy's report at the end of the packet that we're on track. The applications, actually the last day for applications is March 8th and not March 7th. They're going to be reviewing them on March 31st. There'll be Skype interviews of the short list, and then 2 finalists will be selected, and those 2 finalists will come to Santa Cruz. That is what we've been up to.
All right.
I'll be happy to share.
Okay. Well, thank you for that director's report. Do we have any report from our representative from the Friends?
Hello, thank you for letting me address you tonight. My name is Aaron Brandt. I'm the current president of the Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. What we've done recently is we've just successfully completed a fundraiser at Discretion Brewery. I believe this is the 3rd we've had in about 2 years or so. We usually do those on a Monday. How it works is they will donate 10% of all of their pints of beer sales to the Friends. We roll in with a handful of books that we ask people to take a look at and make a donation to pick up. We had a special little thing going where we said, let's have a date with or a blind date with a book, and we wrapped a ton of books in brown paper bags. And some people made some donations and took them home sight unseen, and we've gotten some decent feedback from those. Additionally, we recently went to the Capitol Aptos and SoCal Business Showcase, not with a table, but as us going around addressing all of the businesses, looking for opportunities to form partnerships down the road for additional fundraising opportunities to support the library system. And I believe it was last week we made a significant contribution, our second one, to the campaign, Our Libraries, Our Future. Upcoming, we are tabling and serving wine at the Santa Cruz Chamber of Commerce. That's, I believe, in 2 weeks on a Wednesday. Last year, that was very successful for us. We were the only ones allowed to pour wine, and we were the most frequented booth. We were able to get our message out in between the pouring. Additionally, upcoming in May, we have our annual spring book sale on May 27th and 28th. In between all of that, we have a lot of other little things that we're doing to support the campaign. That's my presentation for tonight. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Brandt.
Very well. All right. That takes us to item 8. Are there any comments by individual board members? Okay. I would have a couple, but I think I have a place on the agenda for an update of what's going on in Capitol, so I'll reserve my comments till that time. So that takes us to the consent calendar. Would anyone from the public like to pull any of the items off the consent calendar? Seeing none, would any board members like to pull any of the items from the consent calendar?
So that's A through K.
That's A through K. We have a number of just administrative actions, receiving a lot of different reports that the library has generated in the past, security incidents log, articles, patrons written comments, amending the budget to accept some grant monies, personnel changes, and then that contribution reimbursement agreement, which we addressed previously in the LFFA meeting. So with that, look for a motion to approve consent.
I will move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so that takes us to the general business this evening. And as I mentioned, we have a little update from Capitola for the rest of the board here tonight. And so I guess the question is how is it best for us to do this? Should I go over there and do a couple of slides? I have a few slides that I want to show everybody from what we're working on the Capitola. All right.
And the renderings are in the packet.
So now here's where I can demonstrate my own personal aptitude with technology. Oh, I thought I was going to just get it right off the bat. Does anybody see what I click on for the slideshow to start?
In the presentation views all the way.
It's just a different format.
Click F5.
F5? Yeah, if there was an F5 button.
There's no F5.
On slideshow. Oh, there it is. Oh, ding, ding. Hey.
Not bad.
Okay. So what we've done at Capitola is we're very excited about this facilities measure. I obviously can't campaign for it, so I'm the city manager in Capitola, but we have our current library today, which is located in the portable building, and we have a real commitment in our community to build a library, get out of this old portable building that we've been in for a long time. So in the first step in that process, we just entered into about a $25,000 contract with the library design firm to kind of help go through a little bit of a community process and kind of get a look and feel for what the Capitola branch, if this measure were successful, might look like. This gives you a little bit of context on where the Capitola Library is, for those of you who don't know. It's on the corner of Clares and Wharf Road. You can see there's Wharf, there's Clares, there's the Soquel Creek, which is adjacent to the historic Rispin Mansion. And this gives you a view from the street of what the facility looks like today. So what we did was we hosted a community workshop and really tried to focus on a couple of questions, asking the community a little bit about what's the character that comes to mind when people think about Capitola. The site itself, what are kind of the attributes that make the site interesting, unique, something that people might tie to a library in one way or another. And then we also talked about building, just looking at other libraries, other iconic public buildings, and what were the buildings that people identified and really resonated with folks who attended. And this is sort of the results of the dot exercise that we did, where people were putting dots up on what they kind of liked. And what we kind of saw at the end of the day was sort of two different schools of thought. One was really kind of trying to have a building that was embraced kind of natural environments, sort of tied into the Soquel Creek and some of the natural attributes that are there. And then on the other side of the coin, there were some folks that really wanted to build off the Rispin Mansion, which is a historic, one of the oldest buildings in Capitola, which is sort of a Spanish colonial style building. They poured in place concrete with red tile roofs. Through the course of the conversation, people really also talked about connecting to the history, the mansion, which I mentioned, an open floor plan, breaking up the masses, different kinds of materials, an emphasis on light. There was a lot of talk about kind of the indoor-outdoor connections of the library. It was one of the things that was really interesting. And then people talked about sort of a smaller scale type facility, but one that was still recognizable as a civic structure and wasn't, invisible, if you will. So with that, our design team went back and started building up on the site with what this might look like. They put into CAD a 3D rendering and looked at different views. We evaluated sort of how it could sit on the site, trying to maintain the tot lot, maintain a civic presence, and also still get parking. We developed a site plan. This is Wharf Road here, Clare, so kind of the front corner is basically where the library today sits. So this would be building out into the parking lot for those of you who are familiar with the Capitola Library, and really trying to preserve the oaks and the existing playground, that sort of courtyard we had out there. And then we developed this, which was the rendering. This is looking at the potential new building from Wharf Road. I'll tell you that the day the newspaper ran this, the city has a partnership with the Monty Family Foundation, where they put on a fireworks show and raise funding in Capitola, and then dedicate that funding towards programs that benefit youth in the city. And the day after this newspaper, I was on the phone with Mark, and Mark said, Jamie, I want to support this project. So I said, great, we would love that. I said, I can't promise it's going to be 6 months away or anything. He said, that's okay, I don't mind. I really want to support the Capitola Branch Library. And so in the past, that's been about $40,000. So with that, I think we already paid for this first design effort, and I hope that everyone's as excited as I am about maybe bringing this to our community. So, so I'll go back to putting the hat on. Are there any questions from the presentation?
The only thing I wanted to say is that this is a great example of how the library represents the community and not just an institution where books are. It really is an engaging explanation of how you got to where you got to, and looks like you got to a beautiful place, so congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a great process, and everybody in Capitola is really excited about it. Hopefully finding a way to get here and get that facility
Right,
built.
and again, I think this notion of having these structures represent the neighborhoods that they live in is really going to make the connection between the libraries and the community, which is, so important.
Right. Were there any public comments on the presentation by the very talented presenter who was up there just a moment ago?
And the award for best presentation.
All right, any other board comments or questions? All right, seeing that, I don't think we have to take any action on that item. I will turn to the Library Advisory Commission update from our interim executive director.
What I did in my report was to just review what we need to do, the initial steps we need to take to call the Library Advisory Commission together. At the time that I wrote the report, we thought that perhaps we would have the last commissioner appointed, but that did not happen, and that is scheduled for the Scotts Valley City Council agenda on March 16th. So we won't take any action until after that time. But I did want to outline for you what we thought, how we thought we should proceed. And in the first meeting, try to get as much of the detail covered as possible to present guidelines or bylaws to be considered, to establish a meeting schedule, to define the rules and regulations, have all of the current Brown Act information that they will need to have available to them, and then we will have to draw lots for the lengths of their various terms as written in the Joint Powers Agreement. I have repeated that here, so you can have that to refer to. So my intention would be, as soon as we do have the seventh person appointed, to immediately begin contacting people about the 7 people about when we can meet, and then start proceeding and start getting that business done with. They have contacted me individually. They're anxious to start working, and they're anxious to work with you, but we need to do these things first. If any questions or any other things that you would like to tell me about getting that process started.
So when is the first meeting going to be? I didn't quite...
The first meeting, I don't know. I have to wait until the 7th person is appointed, and then I can start polling the 7 people to figure out when they can all get together and we can meet.
So could we assume like the 1st of April?
I will start
hopefully?
as soon as I have that last name.
Yeah. Because I know we've heard from our members just wondering, well, why nobody's called them, so.
Yeah, I did send an email earlier when I thought it was going to be the earlier date, and I can send another email just to
Oh,
tell
good.
them what has happened and
Okay, great.
that we're delayed a little bit.
Are there any other board questions for our interim director about the formation of the Library Advisory Commission? Is there any public comment on that item? Seeing now, I'll close the public comment. Any more discussion, or are we, I don't know that we really need an action here. Okay.
Only if that's not how you want me to do it.
No? Looks like a good process, and I think we're all eager to start getting feedback from the commission and get the commission up
And
and
they're
running.
actually eager to get it.
Well, I'm sure Chuck and Scott's Valley is gonna, as the library commissioner ASAP.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll work on it.
Good, so thank you. So with that takes us to item C, which is board appointments. Can I get a staff presentation, please?
This is a staff report from Lisa Murphy, who's the HR director. This has to do with, first of all, the recruitment for the director, and then second of all, a regular ongoing communication with the unions about representing the library staff. So if I take them one by one, it is their recommendation, the recommendation of the people working on the recruitment, that there be an ad hoc committee of two of the board members to serve on the advisory committee to oversee the process of recruiting the director and hiring them in the process when the final two candidates come to Santa Cruz.
All right. So these are two different items. I think the first one has to do with just
Yes.
forming an ad hoc
They're
committee
two
to
different items.
help guide the recruitment process. If any issues come up, to give the HR director a little bit of a point back to this board. You will recall we have,
Yeah.
we will have, ultimately the hire will be this board's decision, but to make sure the process.
So I had just a few procedural questions. I didn't understand this item. We've met before with the recruiter, the library recruiter, librarian recruiter, who laid out a process
Yes.
that had screening and then
Yes.
meetings with the community and meetings with these different panels, and I know that we've contributed to that, people have asked us about attributes that would be desirable and technical skills that they must have and this kind of thing. So I guess I don't know what these people are going to do. I mean, are they going to, they're not going to screen the applications. I mean, I think we should leave that to the HR professionals, right? I mean, what are these two people going to do?
Frankly, this came on to the agenda because I understood that there were some issues that have been developing, questions about how the recruitment process was going to run administratively, not so much about the hire itself. And so this was just to provide, so this wouldn't be a group that would have any extra particular insight into reviewing the candidates or reviewing the applications. It's really like, do you have one panel or do you have two? Do you want to get, someone from the fire department or do you want to get someone from the public works department? Those kinds of questions, I think, to just help sort of for staff to help guide them through this.
Yeah, my understanding was there was comment on the process and not so much.
Okay, so again, now that you say that, there's a familiar ring to, I know there was one concern raised with regard to the sort of use of the panels and how what we were concerned about was that we were going to wind up in a situation where you had different panels recommending different candidates for different reasons, and then, we were going to have a Solomon-esque task of choosing amongst the different panels. So is that what this group is going to work on?
Yeah, that was the specific, I think, issue that came up, and I talked to the HR director in Santa Cruz, and she thought, well, why don't we just set up a little group that can help be the decision maker on how these are done?
And we don't think it should be the HR professionals doing it, we think it should be us? I'm just inquiring.
I'm pretty agnostic to how it's approached. I would just frankly want to make sure that we get, this board is giving clear guidance if we have expectations about how that process is going to roll.
And I would say, I spoke with Martin just briefly in this agenda today, and he wasn't able to come tonight. And my understanding, it may be incorrect, but I thought that actually there was interest from the county in doing something like this.
There was a what?
Interest in the county in doing something like this and having this additional, but if that's not the case, then I think the city is fine. The processes we outlined, I think I was a part of that meeting back in December, November. I think I stepped in for Martine as well, the panels and leaving it to the HR director.
Well, the one concern that I heard was how the, compilation of the information from the different groups was going to be derived. Because again, I think there was some genuine concern about the structure of how you set those up. And so I know Mike McDougall, who's our HR person, had tried to talk to Lisa about it, and I think there was a lot of resistance about, any of that input. So that may have been where some of this came from, but But I think I think he's smart about these things, and he's trying to be helpful. I don't think he's trying to, mess up the works for anybody. So, I'm fine with designating 2 members to the advisory committee if that's what we want to do, but I'm not sure it's really necessary.
If I recall, I'm trying to think back to our other conversation in November, December, I think we talked about the fact that there could be benefits if there are board members involved because they could debrief with the panels. And they would have that opportunity to have the firsthand knowledge from the panelists. It's just like so crucial and so important to hear just really fresh all the perspectives. And the downside of that is then 2 members of this board have access to that firsthand information. Maybe the rest of the board doesn't get to benefit from it.
Right.
So I think, there's pros and cons. So
I think you're right.
So I think it's a tough one. And then you probably can't do 3 members because you're obviously the majority of this board. It gets really tough. Well, so if we do this, then my suggestion would be that the county and the city of Santa Cruz could serve in that, if that would work for Scotts Valley and Capitola.
Yeah, I would be fine with that. I mean, this was, the direct result of sort of, I understood some city and the county having some questions about how to resolve an issue, and it was like, well, look, we need to be able to give guidance. If we don't need to do that, we don't need to do that. It's not certainly Capitola's issue. I think I would, frankly, on the debrief with the panelists, I might actually suggest that we would have a board closed session, a full board closed session to meet with the panelists, so we could all be in the room here, because I do think that debrief is
So valuable.
And just to be able to hear that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think your comment about, having some board members know something and some board members not know it is always, if you're on the not knowing end of it, you're never feeling quite as comfortable as others, so. Yeah.
All right.
Well, anyway, we're happy to help. If there's something we could do to help, that would be great, and I think we shouldn't turn it into more than what it needs to be. Again, I think what was occurring, or at least what I heard, was that there was concern about how the information from the panels were going to get set up, because I know of a recent example for, in another recruitment where there were 2 panels set up and they each came up with a different recommendation, and now you've got the hiring authority having to choose between, do I like this panel better or that panel better, and it's just, it's not a very good position to be in. So I think he was trying to avoid some of that for us, so that we wouldn't create a situation where there were, factions choosing one over another candidate.
Well, before we get any further, why don't we check and see if there's anyone from the public that would like to address us on this? All right. Seeing none, then I'll take it back to the board. I think from my perspective, I'm agnostic one way or the other. I mean, I think that if there are issues that staff is having a hard time working through the staff level, and they need board basically to have sort of a board designated body that can make the final call. And I'm happy doing that. If everybody feels like at the staff level that they can get through this just fine without that, that's okay with me.
Well, I think if Lisa's recommending it, we should do it. And then if she decides, well, we don't need to get that input, we could say, okay, thanks, call me if you need me, I don't think anybody's trying to get in the middle of her, decision making, but I do think we should try to not set up a situation where we have different panel recommendations. So I'm okay with the recommendation as presented, and Santa Cruz and the county would be great, and, if I can't come, may I ask Jamie to go for me?
And I think that it would probably benefit us to, and I'm sorry I don't know the details, but to clarify what oversight of the process means, that such a broad range of things. And so if it truly is just process and checking in, and like how do we really deal with these logistics or these conversations, that's one thing. But I think a really great point was raised about the debriefing. Is that people have to be very thoughtful about that, because ideally the entire board would have the benefit of that, but I think scheduling that would be very tough as well. So I know that some of the panels are set up. So it might be that the 2 HR directors are the ones that come and provide their professional in the closed session for this board.
Yeah, that would be great.
That might be, if that's agreeable, just so we don't get too hung up in schedules and difficulty. Okay.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like on this first item, am I hearing a motion from the county to designate the county and the city, Monty and Susan, to be sort of the ad hoc committee to kind of guide the logistics? Let's just put it that way, the logistics of the...
I think I was the second. I think the motion was from Tina.
Oh, okay.
And you stated it so well. Thank you.
All right, but we're not conferring any sort of special review of the applicant, so okay, they'll still get full.
Or choosing or designating anything, decision-making on it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's it, I'll second that.
All right, is there any more discussion? Seeing that, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so then the second item here has to do with, you'll recall that in a letter of intent that we
Signed again?
signed again today and previously authorized, I think in January, to the OE3 and SEIU bargaining groups, we had indicated that we would have quarterly meetings, right, between this board and the bargaining groups. And so we realized that we probably need to identify a representative from this board to attend those meetings.
So if I could comment on this one I think is actually very important because I see all of the labor groups as our partners in delivering the services to the community. And I think that there's a lot going on with, with these issues that I don't even know about. For example, I know that there are some units that are currently negotiating agreements for things that are going to affect the library, but we haven't had a way of getting that information back to this board. The old library JPA board used to hold closed sessions on things like negotiations, and I don't know if the expectation is that we will do the same in the future or what. So this is something I'm very interested in, and again, I have good working relationships with these groups and would very much like to be involved in that, in those quarterly meetings if we're going to have board members themselves there. I don't think these quarterly meetings should be negotiations meetings. I don't think we should have direct negotiations between the bargaining groups. But I do think this one is a really important ongoing way of making sure that there's no miscommunication to the employees, because I know there's been a fair amount of that in the past. So I'd like to volunteer. and maybe more than one member might not be a bad idea too, because I assume Martine, I don't know if Martine would like to come to it, or maybe she would like to decline.
Yeah, the manager from Capitola. That's right. He was discussing his preferences on this, and he was saying, "Oh, I think that the county has to get this, and then Jamie would be wonderful."
Yeah.
However,
I think Jamie, I would love to have Jamie there, but again, seeing that we're such a big contributor, I wouldn't want to relinquish ability to go if that would be agreeable to everyone.
is per that letter of intent, are two members able to attend, or is it only one?
It just says quarterly meetings, I think.
It just says quarterly meetings, and this is a recommendation from Lisa.
Yeah, I think it just said will be quarterly with only through the JPA, and so
So two could go.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't make sense.
I'd be happy to do it
Yeah.
if it's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to move then that,
Want to hear public?
Oh, thank you.
I knew Beto was here for a reason.
Maybe I'll go that way because I didn't even record this. I don't know what in my face. Hi, my name is Monica Rodriguez. I'm from SAU 521, and I'm here on behalf of Debbie Narvaez, who is our regional director, but also I'm here on behalf of the City of Santa Cruz members of the City of Santa Cruz Libraries. So we are very concerned about the process and conversations being held preventing our members' retirement in the event of a transition from the City of Santa Cruz to JPA. We are in the process of requesting a meeting with our SAU 521 leaders and JPA members. We respectfully request this body to appoint a representative from the County of Santa Cruz and the City of Santa Cruz as a central party of the authority to meet with SAU on the matter of the library authority in accordance of the letter of intent that was executed by all representatives of the library authority. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else in the public want to address us on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment.
Okay, and I think what's really exciting about as this new body is forming and moving forward is that it does kind of reposition the relationships among the county and the cities as well. And I think in doing so, I think it's really, so much of it has been very city-centric. I think it is wonderful to broaden it, so with the inclusion of Jamie. So I would make the motion that the 2 representatives to these bargaining groups would be the County of Santa Cruz and the City of Capitola.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
So just as a feedback from that, it may be a good idea, I don't know, are we going to have Helga joining us at those meetings? It may be a good idea to make notes of those meetings and have them available to the board as a whole, because what I would worry about not having the City of Santa Cruz be there is that we would talk about something that actually matters in some other forum that the city is involved with the union on. And we want to make sure that that communication is able to come. So if we could, keep minutes or keep, notes or something, maybe that would be helpful to Martina and to all the parties, just in terms of communication. Does that sound like?
Yes.
Great. Would that be okay? All right, that would be great.
Well, unless there's any other comments, I think that takes us to the end of our agenda this evening. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Boulder Creek, for hosting.
Yeah, beautiful.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.